thank you all for joining us this week for the County Executive's Weekly Media Briefing. I'm Nordea Lewis with the Public Information Office. As a reminder, this briefing is being recorded. Our county executive will join us shortly, but right now we do have the Director of Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. James Bridgers, Sean O'Donnell, our Acting Deputy Chief of Public Health Services, Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and we have a special guest today, our new Climate Change Officer, Sarah Kogel-Smucker, and Rich Madalino, who will kick things off for us. Rich, take it away.
Thank you very much, Nordea. Rich Madalino, Chief Administrative Officer for the county government. Sorry that the county executive is a few minutes delayed. So we're going to start this week with our conversation about COVID and what we are seeing in our county and our community right now. So case rates actually saw a slight uptick over the last week. Some of the percentages seem large because the case numbers still remain small. But still, when you see these sorts of percentages, we are making sure to carefully monitor the situation. So hospitalizations across the state went up 25% last week, with 26 COVID patients across the state in ICUs and 247 in acute care beds. In the county, we saw a 40% increase in hospitalized COVID-19 patients, 15 more than last week. So again, a large percentage, even though a relatively small number, but still enough for us to make sure we are very carefully monitoring this situation. It's the first time since we started riding the wave of COVID-19 cases trending down earlier this fall that we've seen our case rates and our hospitalizations bounce back. Our health, as I mentioned, our health experts are keeping an eye on this issue, as well as RSV cases and flu cases, to see if they impact our hospitals. It was in early last fall that we actually saw a large number of hospitalizations due to RSV and flu cases that put a strain on our emergency rooms. So we want to make sure we are very carefully staying on top of this situation to make sure that, again, we don't see the same thing with emergency rooms filled with people with flu and our RSV and COVID-19, which is why it is so important to get immunized, to get the vaccines that are out there. Get your flu shot, get the RSV shot, certainly get the new COVID-19 booster, because it will be important to not only keep yourself safe and your family, but the whole community. Because if we can keep you healthy, if we can make sure, even if you get one of these viruses, that you remain in a mild case so you don't need to go to the hospital or the emergency room, that is good for everyone else in the community, because those emergency room beds are needed not just for these viruses, but for the heart attacks and traffic accidents and other issues that happen. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our team from HHS to talk about COVID, and then when they are done, the county executive will be online to talk about the other issues that we wanted to discuss with you today. So Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Madalino. Okay, to share with you some of the data that we have looked at this past week. Again, this is national data on the different variants that we're seeing across the nation. As you can see, the yellow-orange band that's near the top is the EG.5 variant that is sometimes called Eris. That variant, as well as the HV.1, appeared to be growing in percentages. The FL 1.5.1. There's a lot of these variants, but we have a few new ones that have been growing lately, and that may be spurring the increases in cases and hospitalizations. We are still monitoring our wastewater, and you can see after a higher spike back in September, we have been coming down a bit, although it looks like it may have started to level off in wastewater samples with COVID presence. This is on the left, our state data. We look at test positivity, and we look at test positivity on the right in our county. And you can see that it's been declining in our county for a while, and it's now leveled off and gone up just a little bit this past week. The same is true of our case rates. After seeing you can see that gradual decline over the last month and a half. It has now ticked up just a little bit recently. And you can see that's happening in many other counties across Maryland. A little bit clearer here on this is from our county dashboard that we still maintain, showing our case rates on the left and our hospitalization rates and new hospitalization patients on the right. With the county numbers here, we saw our biggest increase in our acute care beds with a COVID diagnosis, showing 14 more of those over the past week. Again, these are relatively small numbers compared to where we were in previous waves, so it does make up a larger percentage. Looking across the state, you can see those numbers that Mr. Madaleno referenced. The state acute care has jumped from 198 to 247, with a smaller increase in the ICU patients across the state. But this is the first time, again, in a few weeks, we've seen an increase across the board. Sharing on the influenza side, I think the last time we reported this, our county was about 11% vaccinated for flu. That continues to go up as people continue to come out for shots. They're now at 15.6% vaccinated, and we hope that will continue to go up. I think last year we saw we were closer to 46%. So although we're still early in the season and we're not seeing much flu activity, we're encouraging people to get those shots now before it starts spreading. Looking at the RSV illness as a percentage of emergency department visits. Again, this is across the entire nation. You can see at the younger ages, those percentages are starting to go up a little bit. So there is some RSV activity going on throughout the United States. Influenza still remains very, very low, although we're starting to see a few cases both in Maryland and across the United States. Finally, I just wanted to, again, remind everyone we still have rapid test kits that are effective at testing for COVID-19 available at our libraries. We still have masks at our libraries, and there's many different options for vaccinations at no cost to the individual, whether it's your insurance covering it or if you're uninsured going through the bridge program or coming to the county to get that shot. So we have these links all up on our website. But happy to share in other manners as well. At this point, I'd like to take a pause and see if our acting chief of public health, Dr. Rogers, or our director, Dr. Bridgers, have any other public health updates they'd like to add.
Nothing for me, Dr. Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Sean. I'll just add that despite some supply chain challenges and insurance issues that are beginning to ease, we do continue to see more people getting the vaccine and have fewer challenges. Public Health Services continues to engage with our community partners to encourage and motivate individuals to get vaccinated for both the COVID-19 vaccine, flu, and RSV. And so we are continuing to meet weekly as a public health team to monitor any stressors to the hospital care system or emergency rooms that may be caused by COVID-19, the flu, or RSV. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Before I pass it on to our county executive, hello, Mark. Does anyone have any health-related questions? And once, twice. All right, Mr. County Executive, I will pass it on to you.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining, and sorry I was a little bit delayed in getting here. I had something I had to tend to that was important, so I got it done, and I'm here. So thanks again for being here this week. Since the outbreak of violence in Israel and Gaza, I've spoken with religious and community groups here in the county about the current challenges that they're facing, and we've realized that many of them need help in the immediate sense. That's why this week the County Council and I expedited more than $300,000 in nonprofit security grant funding to Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, Zoroastrian houses of worship and schools and other community organizations that may be vulnerable right now. This money will provide immediate assistance for local organizations to invest in various security measures to protect their communities and facilities. Additionally, since the terror attack that occurred in Israel at the beginning of the month, MCPD has increased patrols and presence around houses of worship and gatherings. I want to thank Ron Halber at the Jewish Community Relations Council for making the case for this need, and I want to thank Ron and the JCRC and the Montgomery County Muslim Council for helping us identify vulnerable locations. I want to thank the County Council for their support of this funding and thank our staff who are working to get this money to the recipients with as little red tape as possible. And we're not going to tolerate acts of hate by anyone. I hope all of us can grieve as we need to, but that we can restrain ourselves from lashing out at our neighbors and friends. What's happened abroad should not change how we interact with people here at home. I'm determined to do everything in my power to make sure that Montgomery County remains a safe place for all. Our communities have a history of coming together and working on common issues, including security and safety in the past. And I'm glad that we're doing it again now. And I want everybody to, keep that in mind as we go forward. We've built really good, strong relationships between people here. We need to keep them. In other news, this is Economic Development Week across the state of Maryland. Here in Montgomery County, our economy is doing well. We've been able to achieve our lowest unemployment rate in over 30 years. We continue to make strides in opening the door to more companies looking to expand, relocate, or create their businesses here. And last week, the Maryland Department of Commerce announced that it received $750,000 in grant funds from the U.S. Small Business Administration to give the state a bigger footprint in the world economy. The money will be used to broaden international reach and help local companies create jobs and find new markets. Of the 32 Maryland companies receiving money, 16 of them are from Montgomery County, and many of them we've worked with to apply for these funds. The county's also been helping businesses through the early stages of development. We've been able to use our business incubators to help entrepreneurs develop the skills they need to bring their ideas to market. And we're providing workforce training in the collaboration with the Universities of Shady Grove, Montgomery College, and WorkSource Montgomery. And I want to thank the people for starting out and for changing their careers. We've done a lot of work trying to provide opportunities so that people can advance themselves, not just simply get a job where they are today in terms of their skills, but develop new skills. These workforce training programs, combined with many other things in our county, our schools and communities, major federal facilities, and our highly educated population, they all combine together to provide a reason why many of biotech, information tech, cybersecurity, and hospitality companies have been able to come here and thrive. Our unique ag reserve and agricultural communities are part of our economic growth. The opening of Crossvines earlier this year was an important part of our strategy to help make the agriculture more economically viable. Crossvines, in case you don't know, is a grape crush facility, essentially a winemaking facility. And it's also home to an event center and a great new restaurant. I've been particularly excited about Crossvines because it grew out of a conversation I had more than 10 years ago with Kevin Addix, who then was the representative of the wine industry and is now the Secretary of Agriculture for the state. And at the time, Kevin represented value-added agricultural industries, and we talked about how grapes could be grown in our soil here. He was actually doing a presentation at that conference, and what intrigued me were a couple of things he said. One was the problem with Maryland wine wasn't the grapes, it was the wine growers, because many of them were amateurs who had just grown their business but never learned winemakings. The other thing that he said was that Montgomery County happens to have the right soils in areas of the county for actually growing grapes and the right climate. And when I got finished talking to him, it was really clear that we could replicate the kind of success Northern Virginia had in creating a wine industry. So I started down the path of getting Montgomery County in a position to start growing its wine industry here because it's a high value crop, one of the highest value crops, and it will help farmers stay in business. They don't have to turn everything into grapes, but it's a really profitable crop, and we think it will help stabilize and ensure our farmers can make the income they need to stay in farming. From there, I talked to Keith Miller at the Revenue Authority, and the journey began. And we have, like I said, we have some great wineries already here, and we have more coming. And speaking of that, today I toured Burnt Hill Farm in Clarksburg with Maryland Secretary Addix. And we learned how this farm, with its biodynamic practices, can produce natural wine while also drawing tourists. He and I both believe in the benefit of value-add agriculture being produced here in Montgomery County. Burnt Hill has already existing winery in Westminster, and they bought 117 acres of perfect land. And just so you know, the definition of perfect land was perfectly bad land, where no other farmer could actually figure out what to grow there successfully. So what's bad for agriculture in general is actually really good for grapes. And Maryland has some really good bad land. And that's just something to keep in mind. So we had the chance to tour the farm and to see where they're going. They're building their buildings this year. They're crushing and producing the wine at their Westminster facility. Next year, they hope to have their own crush and processing facility in place on the farm. Montgomery County is the home to a robust and diverse, talented group of entrepreneurs. And from here, companies can be connected to federal agencies, many different funding opportunities, and a network of life science and data-driven companies. We continue to be home to one of the nation's top school systems. A key component of our potential economic development success is having Montgomery County become a destination for international businesses. And over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be going on an economic development trade mission to India and Vietnam, two of the most robust, booming economies in the world. And I'm going to be joined by Council President Devin Glass and business leaders from Montgomery County for these important trade missions. My goal is to find new ways for Montgomery County to partner with businesses in Vietnam and India, and we're looking for opportunities to bring jobs and new technologies, new products to the county. India and Vietnam are two important economic engines with already established business and cultural ties to Montgomery County. And this kind of builds on what we did in our Taiwan trip, where we met people in Taiwan who already knew about Montgomery County. It made us a lot easier to promote Montgomery County when people in these countries know who we are and have a sense of the work we do. And even things like our efforts at diversity and inclusiveness actually register in a positive way with people in these other countries, to know that the county is not just says it's doing these things, but we actually openly work in this sphere, and that gives them a level of comfort about coming here. According to most recent statistics from the Department of State, Indian investment in the United States totaled $12.7 billion and supported over 70,000 American jobs. And as you can see from the chart on the screen, nearly a third of Indian investments are going toward life sciences, pharmaceutical, and healthcare industries. Montgomery County is the heart of the third largest life sciences cluster, the second largest in terms of workforce availability and the talent levels. We're home to federal installations such as FDA, National Institutes of Health, and NIST. And they are clearly very excited about our delegation visit and provide economic opportunities and partnerships. And, we're looking with the companies we're bringing over there to find partners in India and Vietnam for their companies. So we're doing this as a two-way journey, bringing people here and connecting our companies with opportunities to expand in these other countries. Vietnam's economy is also booming right now, and they're the fastest growing economy in Asia with about an 8% growth rate. And Vietnam's now our 8th largest trading partner. I look forward to telling them about our partnership with the University of Maryland to create the Institute for Health Computing at the North Bethesda Metro Station. This institute is going to leverage recent advances in artificial intelligence and computing to increase speed and efficiencies in creation and testing processes in the life sciences industry. And the Institute's on the cutting edge of innovation. I expect we'll receive positive feedback like we heard when we went to Taiwan earlier in the year. We'll also be promoting these 8 organizations which received Export MD grants from the Maryland Department of Commerce to travel to these countries to find customers and or suppliers. It makes a lot of sense the way we use diversity here. It makes a lot of sense to have people who have experience in Montgomery County, lived experience in Montgomery County, being able to talk to people in Vietnam and in India and talk about why they think Montgomery County has been a good place for them to come and locate and a good place for them to bring their businesses. So it's really been positive for us to have this kind of messaging. In other economic development work, our business center, with the support of the Maryland Department of Commerce, recently welcomed 7 companies from Taiwan, Korea, France, and Tanzania into our incubators. We're offering grant funding for international companies, opening a lab or office in one of our business incubators. And we're also able to navigate referrals to other resources in the county that businesses may need. There are things to learn on our visit as well. When I'm in India, I look forward to meeting with leaders in IT and biotech, but also learning more about advances in technologies. And one of the things that I've been interested in is in the work that's being done to looking at turning organic waste or other organic byproducts into hydrogen. And when I was in Taiwan earlier this year, I got a firsthand look at vertical farming, and I anticipate learning more about it and other green technologies that are in play in these 2 countries. So there are many potential collaborators that lie ahead in business, government, and academia, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about my trip over the next 2 weeks with our social media pages. And joining us today on the call is Judy Costello, who is an economic development specialist in my office. And I will say, absolutely amazing in what she did to put together first the Taiwan trip, but now this trip to India and Vietnam. It takes a lot of work to coordinate all these things. And Judy's really made sure that these trips have happened and happen in a way that'll help us put Montgomery County's best foot forward. So with that, I'm going to give her a chance to say a couple things or answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark. I don't know if anybody has any questions. We are traveling to India and Vietnam, as Mark said, specifically Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Bengaluru, and then Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. And in each city, the primary focus is business attraction and also supporting companies in Montgomery County who are looking to grow through partnerships abroad. And the county executive mentioned that we helped 8 companies who will be traveling with us obtain Export MD grants to support their travel overseas. We have more than 24 meetings and site visits with biotech accelerators and IT accelerators and industry and trade associations, a couple university visits. And in each case, we're hoping to learn, as the county executive said, and also meet with companies in India and Vietnam who see an opportunity to grow through partnerships with organizations here in Montgomery County, which ultimately we hope will grow jobs here in both places and help enhance our economic development. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, do we have any questions right now for Ms. Costello or our county executive regarding their initiatives they just spoke about? No questions? Okay. Well, climate change is also very important to our county, which is why we have our new climate change officer joining us. Sarah, I will pass it off to you.
I think it's reverse order. Do you want me to go first, Sarah, or do you want to go first?
I believe you were.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do our
I don't
county
want to
executive.
throw your timing off. So October is Energy Action Month. Actually, given the current state of affairs, every month is Energy Action Month. We can't afford to make this a once-a-year kind of thing. It's a reminder that we need to transition and conserve energy, transition to cleaner energy. And we're looking at other sources. We continue to implement best practices and policies around energy use. And we focus on this every week, but we're giving it a special shout out today. Buildings account for about 50% of our current greenhouse gas emissions. So changes there can make a big difference. 2 pieces of legislation that we recently passed to address energy usage is our Buildings Energy Performance Standards, which we call BEPS, and our electrification bill. These laws and regulations will help reduce energy use in existing large commercial buildings, residential buildings, as well as require all electric building standards for new construction. You can see from the chart about benchmarking the progress we've made and the gains we anticipate through 2024 in the number of buildings and amount of office space that's complying with the higher standards. As more of our electricity is coming from renewable sources like wind and solar, Using electric appliances instead of gas ones is a key part of reducing pollution. Going electric at home entails the adoption of electric heating, cooking, and cooling options, and replacing gas appliances with electric ones helps to reduce or eliminate fossil fuels like natural gas, propane, and oil, and also preserves or improves air quality. And for example, an induction stove delivers better performance than a gas top stove and converting low efficiency fossil fuel heating systems to high efficiency electric heat pumps is also a smart upgrade. And regardless of your fuel source, energy efficiency continues to be the cheapest, quickest, and cleanest way to meet our energy needs and reduce our utility bills. This may seem obvious, but electronics play a huge role in every family's home energy use. Everyone should realize that unplugging electronics or using power strips to disconnect multiple items at once is environmentally friendly. We forget how many things that stay plugged in are actually consuming electricity when they don't appear to be working. Those little pilot lights that tell you that here I am ready for you to hit the on button are actually eating electricity as well. So we also we're asking people to consider using more energy efficient light bulbs, using cold water to do laundry, installing ceiling fans, and insulating your windows and your doors. All of these ideas are pretty easy to do, relatively cheap, and you're going to see an immediate benefit in both energy usage as well as lower energy bills. And as somebody who's going down this path myself, I actually see the difference when I start making these kind of changes. So it's real, and it really does show up in your electric bill at the end of the day. In the modeling chart, you can see the buildings account for the entire pink section of this graph. And if we succeed in reducing energy use and switching to clean energy sources, we'll reduce the greenhouse emissions by 2 million greenhouse gas units yearly by 2030. My administration has created the comprehensive climate action plan, as well as our climate change officer for our county. Our climate action plan is our roadmap to achieve our carbon emission goals. And the person responsible for enacting this plan is our climate change officer. Last month, Sarah Kogel-Smucker started as our second climate change officer. When she interviewed for this job, not only did I think she had a perfect background for the work, but she had a real passion for it. And now that she's had a month under her belt, the Fun Energy Action Month was a good time for her to introduce herself to everybody and to talk to her about her vision for the role. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, County Executive. So as said, I'm Sarah Kogel-Smucker, the Montgomery County Climate Change Officer. And I want to thank you for the introduction and the opportunity. I am so excited to be in this role. And so to briefly introduce myself, for the last 15 years before taking this position, I served local government as a lead climate change attorney. I had a key role in developing, shaping, and implementing climate action plans in New York City and DC. So for instance, I was a department lead in development and implementation of New York City's plan to rebuild from Hurricane Sandy and increase its resiliency. And it's exciting to see some of these major federal infrastructure projects under construction now. In DC, we sued major fossil fuel companies for climate deception, and I spearheaded the creation of the DC Office of People's Counsel, the new climate action section to advance affordable and equitable clean energy climate solutions. I do have a passion for this work. I feel grateful to work on climate. I think it's existential. It's why I focused my career on it. And also because I think climate solutions can improve other important problems. So climate solutions are about reducing childhood asthma cases. They're about having better ways to commute. And they're about addressing how communities are overburdened because of historic racism and inequity and reversing those trends. So having settled in Montgomery County with my husband and raising my children here, I really wanted to focus my work here. As the county executive said, my role is to lead implementation of the county's climate action plan to achieve the county's ambitious but necessary climate goals. So the county goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, that's climate change pollution, 80% by 2027 and 100% by 2035. That's soon. But Montgomery County is well positioned to make big changes. And that's why I was so excited to take this role. Is It's a huge opportunity to see programs that make a difference and lead the way in the country on changes that we need to make. We have a plan that charts the way to meet these climate goals that's already in the process of being implemented. We have a talented and dedicated workforce. There's dedicated advocates in the community. There's strong communities. We have a commitment to climate and leadership on it from the county executive, the county council, state and federal partners. And very importantly right now, the Federal Inflation Reduction Act funds will allow us to accelerate the plan's implementation. And so as the county executive said, it's Energy Action Month. So I want to emphasize that energy action is a huge part of meeting our climate change goals and implementing this plan. As the county executive mentioned, to combat climate change, we need to transition to using clean sources of energy like wind and solar electricity to power our homes, vehicles, and businesses. And we need to use less energy overall. So Montgomery County is leading the way with innovative programs. As the county executive mentioned, residents can help in ways that save them money. There are easy steps you can take, as mentioned, like just turning off power strips or putting in LED light bulbs. And we're also asking you consider switching from fossil fuel powered to electric when it's time to buy a new appliance or vehicle if you are able. And I want to emphasize, as climate change officer, I don't just work with government. I serve as a resource for county organizations, students, and the media. So please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm excited to work with community partners around the county. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah. Does anyone have any questions about climate change or Energy Action Week? No questions on those topics? Okay, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. You could feel free to sign off, or if you want to stay, you can. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so right now we will open it up for general questions. If anyone has any, please raise your hand. Any questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay, I think that covers it. Thank you again so much for joining us. We will see you next time.
Thank you.